a few months ago we had that whole Rebel Leader fiasco where a lot of players were joining shell alliances and buying the 10,000 motivation pack with diamonds, and if done by about 80 people or more at once altogether, it would be diamond profitable. So you'd go up in diamonds from the alliance gifts, you'd go up in huge amounts of speed ups, diamonds, alliance coins, stuff like that. Resources too, that made a big difference. We see with Glorious Battle at the moment how excessive the demand for resources is to heal. So the resources gone from that was huge. They obviously fixed that. The store-bought motivation with diamonds is now restricted. You can only buy one 10,000 pack per day, for example. What this did do is show players beyond any reasonable doubt that spending diamonds on motivation is actually efficient if you can get everyone to buy in and do it together. So whilst the rebel trains have been somewhat restricted, we still see them go on, just not to the levels they were before. We have seen a lot of alliances quite heavily raise their rebel leader requirements. So in Reese, for example, we currently ask for 42 level 4s or 14 level 5s a week, which averages out to be 6 4s or 2 5s a day. That basically isn't achievable unless you're either using alts to like first hit level 4s to be able to one hit them on your main, or if you have a stack of motivation items in reserve already, but generally you have to spend diamonds on it. So if you're 2-hitting 4s, if you have no motivation recovery and refinement, you will achieve that just from your own regen and buying the 10,000 pack a day basically. Some of the bigger alliances I am aware of have even higher requirements than that. It's kind of hard for us to push higher than that just because we have quite a lot of free-to-play players and lower spending players that have stopped spending and don't have, like Green Enzo in particular is the big one that just totally changes the landscape in terms of rebel leaders. If you don't have him, or an alt, like a level 60 alt that can reliably weaken rebels for your main, is a big deal, especially when you go to like the really intense requirements for rebels. What we have seen a bit of a trend move towards is actually getting motivation recovery on refinement. So I was always a bit skeptical of this because I'm very, I'd say maybe elitist in terms of like stat optimization. And obviously to have motivation recovery in your refinement you have to give up a lot of PvP stats. But I think you're seeing more and more, like say in AC, if we go and look at these matches here, so BDR versus M3O, if you look at the players down here in BDR's roster, these accounts won't really be doing any PvPing that is reliant on their own stats. They'll pretty much exclusively be, even in live PvP scenarios, like hard blanking and just joining rallies on their top accounts. So the stats on these top accounts are the only ones that really matter in that situation. Obviously it's AC, it's rally based, same thing applies, they're just joining rally leaders, so their own stats don't need to be optimized as much. And if you're down here, you're probably at the lower end of spending. Not necessarily, you can have crazy strong accounts down here, but it's rarer obviously. So accounts down here are probably the most likely in, let's say, need of a bit of extra help in terms of meeting these really high rebel leader requirements we see in these bigger alliances at the moment. And motivation recovery, I've done some testing on it, it really does make a huge difference. We've had quite a few people in Reese roll to it recently and said how much of a difference it seems to have made for them. So I did the maths as a before and after, and I took an hour segment of regen without it, and I had 500,000 rally size on this account for AC, and now we're out of UC, so I rolled out of it into all motivation recovery. So it's 5 gold slots, which is maybe a bit unrealistic for some players, but we're getting to the point where Refinement's been out for a long time. A lot of people have more and more gold slots, so I don't think it's that crazy for old players at least. Now, without the refinement, there was 433 motivation recovered in an hour period, which seems quite low. You barely even pass 10,000 motivation recovered over 24 hours with that. So you'll be able to kill a maximum of effectively 3 level 4 rebel leaders, and you'll really need to get motivation items from external sources with that. With the 150% motivation recovery, it went up to 812, so it almost doubled. And if you subtract 812 by 433, so the after by the before, that gives you a value of 379 as a net difference in hourly regen, which if you do the maths over 24 hours is over an extra 9,000 motivation a day. So in my alliance, you'll be able to meet our rebel leader goals entirely just from your own regen with having it on refinement if you can 2-hit level 4s. And that's assuming you're not even using ults to make it even easier by making them 1-hit or anything like that. So when you compare it to the alternative, which would be buying 10,000 extra motivation a day, that will effectively save you over 200,000 diamonds across a month, which is a huge amount of diamonds. So whilst you're losing the PvP stats doing this, you can indirectly increase your stats through other means. So obviously you'll be hitting rebel leaders more, which if you're farming Kingsguard gear will help you increase the rarities of that. That will help improve your stats. Plus you'll just save more diamonds and you'll be able to spend those on stuff like epic tokens maybe to progress your awakening. Epic tokens are insanely expensive, but they are necessary to be bought if you want to really take your account to a strong point. And this is a very good way of doing it. So I think mathematically maybe 180% would surpass the doubling your motivation regen across an hour testing period. This account does have full expedition researches, stuff like that, so if you don't have any stuff like that max, this will be even more prominent of a regen buff. And the other nice thing with this, I'll roll out of it right now just because I'm so confident of this, is it's very, very easy to roll back into. It has such a high drop rate, so you see that I used, 6 stones to get it? So the nice thing of this is you can effectively just roll in and out of this if the rest of your refinement you're happy with at least. So you can easily roll into motivation recovery between events, between say merit trips or wars or anything like that. And then when those do come around, you can try and roll into some of the more easier stuff to get healths in particular. Frontline health, if you're a lower spending player, is a good stat anyway, because you can't really spread your formations too thin across all 3 lines just because you won't have the resources to really manage it. Maybe for defending you will, but attacking definitely not. And I think we're going to see this become more and more of a meta thing to do. I think a lot of the top alliances are doing it themselves, because if you're a lower spending player you really do need to sort of go to extra lengths to be able to keep up, because the requirements are getting very, very intense, and this is something that just really helps bridge that gap. So I would recommend trying this if you're in one of the bigger alliances or you're just struggling to meet your alliance's rebel leader goals. This will make a huge difference. You just have to remember that you aren't wedded to it, because you can roll in and out of it so easily. Like, I'll do it again. I'll get it back within like 2 stones. It's so easy to roll in and out of. So you can just bounce between that and frontline health especially so easily. If you don't actively want to change much else in your refinement, you can just let your stones stack up and just use them for this swapping in and out process, because you can just repeat that forever effectively, and it will really, really help you boost up your rebel leader numbers.